Hello and welcome along to our video guide on how to use Adobe Podcasting. My name's Meg, I'm a Digital Learning Officer here in Perth and Kinross Council, and I'm also an Adobe Creative Educator Innovator, which means that I am passionate about the Adobe products that are available to us in Glow, and I'm here to show you how to use them. But before we start to look at the features of this fantastic tool, it's probably a good idea to think a little bit about podcasting and what it can bring to our young people and their learning experience. Firstly, we are improving the communication skills of our learners because they are learning to articulate ideas clearly when creating podcasts. We're encouraging them to create and to be collaborative, as group podcasting can involve several roles and responsibilities. We're developing their digital literacy as learners gain experience with audio editing and the publishing tools. When we think about their retention, we can actually enhance this because listening and producing content can reinforce the understanding through active engagement, but it also makes it accessible for revision, as podcasts can serve as reusable learning resources for exam prep. We are enhancing our inclusivity and supporting diverse learning styles when podcasting, as students with reading difficulties or dyslexia can find audio less overwhelming than dense pieces of text. This also helps us to reduce language and literacy barriers because podcasts can allow teachers to explain concepts conversationally, which can be easier for students with lower reading proficiency or English as an additional language. And most importantly, we're encouraging student voice and engagement as students create their own podcasts and foster confidence and ownership of learning. So you can see I am logged into my Adobe Express dashboard, and I've got this because every staff member and every learner within Perth and Kinross Council has access to Adobe Express for Education through Glow. So all you would need to do is navigate to your Glow tiles by going to the Glow Scotland website and logging in that way, and that should automatically open Adobe Express for you. Or if you're using it on an iPad, you just log in with your Glow credentials on the Adobe Express app. Once you have got into the dashboard, as you can see, it's Christmas time, so we've got all of the creativity challenges here, which are great and I would really recommend having a look at. But right now we are looking at the podcasting tool. And as you can see, this is a brand new feature that's been added in as a tile to your Adobe dashboard. And when you click on it, it will open the Adobe Podcast feature in a new tab. So I'm going to click Start Recording because that's the easiest way to show you, but there is extra information on this page about the different features. So when we click Start Recording, it will open up the studio for me. Now, you can see at the top here that the number one rule for Adobe Express is to name your item so you can find it easily, especially if you use Adobe Express a lot. So what we're doing is we're going to work on a Christmas Traditions podcast today. And it could genuinely just be a case that you assign this task to your learners, they click Start Recording and do their introduction, and it will pick up everything that they say. So, hello, my name's Meg Bruff, and welcome to our podcast on Christmas traditions. So once I have recorded that, if I go to this tab here that says Edit, what you'll see is it will process what I have just said. It will identify that it is me that has said it, and it will transcribe everything that I've said. And as you can see there, it really does pick up everything that I say. Now, I didn't really want that piece in my transcript there. So what I'm going to do is I am going to correct my transcript. And I'm going to delete that. When I click play, hello, my name's Meg Bruff, and welcome to our podcast on Christmas traditions. It has edited it out there as well. Even if I go right back to the start. So, hello, my name's Meg Bruff, and welcome to our podcast on Christmas traditions. So there isn't any fancy editing that is going on here in terms of chunking things together or using complex audio technology. It really is the case of, I don't want that word so in there. So I can edit that, correct my transcript, delete this. And when I go back to the start, hello, my name's Meg Bruff, and welcome to our podcast on Christmas traditions. And it will only keep in the audio that I wish to keep, the words that I want to keep in there, which is so much easier to do for our younger learners. Now you'll also see that I have said a word, which is my surname, but it's not actually picked up and put that in that transcript. And this is an example of the transcript, maybe not always being 100%, but as well as you deleting things, you can also add in words to it. So I can click on the word, again, click correct transcript. I can add in the word that it has not picked up on and change it like that. And that goes with things like misspellings or if it's picked up a word incorrectly. So there is the ability to change that. Now, the reason that this is also so important is to do with the way that you export the recording. So as you can see that it just identifies who's been speaking into that microphone. So it might be the case that you just want to do a straight recording with the learners all sitting around one device. That's absolutely fine. And you don't want the text to be identifiable by name anyway, because, if you export that, there might be issues with GDPR and things like that. It just depends on what you plan to do with this recording. But if we go into export, you can see that there's something called an audiogram, which is an animated transcript video. And this is really good for accessibility if you have learners in your class that may benefit from subtitles. So what you can do there is you can turn on show speaker name or turn off show speaker name, depending on, the risk there. But here we can see who is saying what. So in order to be identifiable in what you are saying, then we need to have it with multiple sort of microphones and accounts. So there is ability to invite guests up here at the top right hand corner. You can click invite with link and you would be able to send that link to anyone, and anyone with the link can join the recording, and they don't actually need an Adobe Express account. You need an Adobe Express account to host the podcast, but not necessarily to be a part of the podcast, which again is great in terms of inclusivity. Would be good if you were working with partners, other members of staff, maybe learners would want to record and identify their parents and things like that. So if you are, I'm just going to pop that link into a profile which is not logged into Adobe, and you can see it will give me the option to join the session that I've been. So I've popped the link up here. This is the recording session. I'll just call myself the cheeky elf, and I can join the session here. And as you can see here, there are 2 different people being recorded for one podcast. This little home button here, it will take you back to the Adobe Podcast homepage. And sometimes if you double click it, you'll see that your projects are up here on your right hand side as well. So if you go into my projects, welcome to Adobe Podcast should automatically be in there. And it's a really good tutorial for you for getting to grips with this, but also for using to show your learners what the finished podcast might look like and to get them to play about with this and edit it as they feel is appropriate. So as you can see, we've got 2 different colours of identifiers for the speech here. And again, you can go in here and you can correct this or edit this transcript as you wish. But as you can see, 2 different identifiable voices. And then when you go to export, let's say this was a complete project and you went to export, there is the ability to make that audiogram there, and that would turn that transcript into a video. But we're not quite there yet for our learners. Okay, so you can also see that they have added in placeholders and pieces of music into that as well. So I'm going to show you how to do that if we go back to our task. So again, back to the home button, back to my project. So here's our Christmas podcast. And I want to add in a piece of introduction music. So if you click on music, as you can see, there are lots of different pre-made pieces of music. So let's go for Sparkle. And there are intros, outros, transitions, and backgrounds. So they have been created with specific parts of the podcast in mind. So I don't want a long intro. I'm just going to choose a short one. And so I can play that. even then that's a bit too long for me. So I can split that. I've paused it here, I've clicked split. And then I'm going to delete this part. And you'll see that it's shortened it down for me. Hello, my name's Meg Bruff and welcome to our podcast. But that is still two separate files. So to make it sound even more polished and professional, what I can do up here is I can click the little edit thing here, and you can have it fade in or fade out, but I actually want to have it set as a background for my voice so that it sounds like it's doing a little bit of a voiceover before we get into the podcast. So let's click play now. Hello, my name's Meg Bruff and welcome to our podcast on Christmas traditions. And as you can see, in a few simple clicks, you have created a really professional sounding podcast there. So you can, again, add in music for transitions. So let's just go for fuzz and what a short transition might sound like. Now you'll see that I've accidentally put that after Christmas and before traditions. So I'm going to have to move that, and just by dragging it down to after the word, you'll see that actually everything goes on words here. So you can put in that piece of music after that word, but again, you can have it set as a background for the next piece of talking as well. It's always good to encourage some project-based or interdisciplinary learning. So why not get your learners to work on an app like GarageBand or another audio recording tool to create what I want to draw your attention to is on the left-hand side there is filters here, which you can turn on. Now, you will be working in a very busy classroom with learners who are yelling and clapping and just being noisy children. And often that can become a problem when you're trying to record things or create videos and things like that. But Adobe has AI built in, which has actually been nominated as one of the Times Best Inventions for 2025, which actually reduces background noise to make it sound like you were recording in a studio. So you can have less background noise and more speech, which should reduce the majority of the background noise. It's very difficult for me to show you an example right now of what that would look like because I don't have access to a busy classroom, but rest assured, give this a try and it will blow your mind because the technology is fantastic. So you can play around with those filters on the speech to enhance everything that you have as well. Finally, you can add placeholders. So if you are building up this podcast and you're coming back to it at a later date and you have to remember what you have to put there, you can add in music soundtrack here. If you're off to do a interdisciplinary project where you are creating your own music, or you can add other things in. So if you just want to export the audio podcast, as we say, we can just go to export and it gives you multiple different options. So you can go choose an audio format. MP3 is probably the best. As I said, you can create that audiogram, which is the animated transcript video. So you can make that landscape, portrait, or square. Square would usually be used for something like social media. You can change what that looks like. I felt like the retro one. Or you can upload your own background. So it might be a picture of something that is appropriate for your class. Again, the option for speaker name, showing project title. And then if you want, you can remove the branding of Adobe Podcast. It will tell you how long your video lasts for and how long it's going to process. And then you can create that audiogram there. The other options are you just want to download the transcript. You can do that absolutely fine. So you can click download transcript, or you can separate files for each participant and only download the recording for those individual participants as well. Adobe Podcast doesn't just limit you to doing just podcasts. You can also use some video and audio editing features here too. So you can just enhance the speech of any piece of audio by uploading it and removing the background noise and echo. You can upload any video you've previously made to do automatic captioning for this to make it more accessible. Or you can convert audio to video and create an audiogram by uploading a piece of audio into this tool here. You can also transcribe any audio or video into a piece of text which can be downloaded as a PDF, or you can edit audio and video here just as you would within Adobe Express. Finally, if we navigate to My Projects, there are another couple of things here that might help your learners. We also have access to audio templates that might be a really good place to start, which give them examples of how to build up that podcast. And when they have finished your podcast, have a little look at these graphic templates and think about some ideas that learners could be taking into Adobe Express to create some cool podcast cover art.